In this video, we'd like to take you into our world and discuss the themes, motivations, and process behind Superradiance, a multi-screen video and sound installation and film that invites the viewer to extend their bodily perception beyond the skin and into the living environment. We realize there may be a preconception that artists working with AI simply say,
"Computer, make me a beautiful art, very detailed, magical."
We're going to take you through our process, which combines poetry, dance, and insights from neuroscience woven together with code, simulations, and generative AI. We are deeply embedded within complex assemblages of life. It's one thing to intellectually know this, but how can we feel it in our bodies? We drew upon the idea of embodied simulation, a cognitive phenomenon where, as you observe another person moving, you feel their movement in your own body. As Vittorio Galisi writes, the objectual other becomes another self. Dance is one of our earliest biotechnologies. Through ritual and ecstatic dance, we dance to experience union with the universe directly. So we placed a dance at the heart of this piece to drive the composition and movements. But first, we began with another ancient technology, poetry. After months of research, we began to draft the initial outline of the script during a residency at Stochastic Labs in Berkeley. Most mornings, this process began in the woods with long forest meditations and walks. We began with the premise of a living Earth, holding space for intelligence both within the self and distributed across the planet. I am a body. I am also a multitude of smaller living bodies. I am a body, and I am also part of a greater living body, a planetary body. In developing the narrative, which would be an interplay between language, choreography, and imagery, we explored how to represent this multitude of selves. We knew we wanted the piece to reconnect us spiritually to this body, and to help us understand that what exists within the perceived boundaries of our skin is only part of the story. We laid out our beats alongside imagery and choreography notes, and wove them together into the final poem. Finally, we used the poem as both a conceptual and rhythmic foundation for the dance. The choreography needed to work on multiple levels. We wanted to communicate connection and gratitude to the earth, like a ritual celebrating awe, reverence, and blessing. From earth to sky, dissolving the boundaries of the body, seeping into the environment. It also needed to create evolving compositions in space, such that we could use the body's form and movements as a foundation to create metamorphosing life forms, embedded in animate environments, to drive the unfurling of fungi, transitioning into trees reaching to the sky, into underwater kelp forests, and back to a living, breathing woodland. We use the twirling energy of a pirouette to drive waves that blossom into feathery hydroids, churn into ocean foam, spew the surf against the sandy beach, and throw the desert dust into the sky. We wanted to really blend the body into its environment, operating beyond the perceived boundaries of the skin. So we used the dancer's movements to advect fluid simulations with particles and force fields. We created a real-time simulation environment, which processes the video of the dance to create multiple video layers, which we will later use to control many different aspects of our generative workflow. We bring our edited dance video into a node-based programming environment called Touch Designer. Each of these nodes does some basic processing on the video, like creating a silhouette mat. Each dancer has a different color, allowing us to treat them and their effect on the environment individually by using these as attention masks for IP adapters and control nets. We'll go into this later when talking about generative workflow. Finding edges, detecting movement, and calculating movement velocity. After a few more steps, these go into a fluid simulation, and eventually into several particle simulations. The particles create a visual link between environments. The durable presence of these particles also represent the continuous presence of life, from schools of fish to lichen, to stars, to microbes, those tiny living creatures that exist in every environment on Earth. Each of these have dozens, sometimes even hundreds of parameters. We can play with these parameters in real time to affect many aspects of the way the fluids and particles move. This is a classic turbulent force field. Here the force pushes outward from the body and sucks inwards, or a flow in any direction. We use the movement of the dancer's body, fluid, and particles to drive the movement of the final imagery. In addition to playing with these in real time, we keyframe some of the parameters, locked to a timeline to synchronize with the development of the narrative and the script. From these simulations, we export multiple video files, which we will later use as layers or masks to control various aspects of our generative AI workflow. Currently, the piece consists of 2 chapters. Both use the dance and simulation as a starting point, but after that, we used very different pipelines for each chapter. Chapter 1, Embodied Simulation, meditates on the idea of the body and the self as a transient assembly of cells, microorganisms, and cosmic matter, temporarily organized to give rise to what we perceive as a body and a self. For this chapter, we carefully selected keyframes from the edited dance and simulation video and exported frames from the fluid and particle simulation. We hand-painted on these frames to create compositions with the color and content that we wanted. We used a custom generative AI workflow to transform these hand-drawn images into organic life forms, taking the color and composition from our drawings. We developed another piece of custom software to animate these creatures and bring them to life, using the movement from the dancer and the fluid and particle simulation as a driving force. The final effect, we hope, is to create a sanctuary, framing dance as a primal, unifying act that connects individuals to each other and to the living world. While Chapter 1 looks inwards, Chapter 2 ventures outwards, beyond the skin, embracing the planet as a living organism, an interplay between trillions of interdependent living organisms. It was important that the body was now embedded and entangled within the living environment. For this, we needed to design a very different process. We worked with researchers at Scripps Institute of Oceanography for both conceptual inspiration and research data in the form of images. We were inspired by conversations with the research team at SOARS, the Scripps Ocean Atmosphere Research Simulator, about the air-sea interface, about boundaries as dynamic sites of exchange, of journeys and transits. Scripps museum scientist Charlotte Sade offered us thousands of images, which we selected from to build a custom dataset. We also included thousands of photographs of natural environments that we took ourselves and even sourced from family members, ranging from the deserts of Egypt and Jordan, the glaciers of New Zealand, the Smoky Mountains of North Carolina, the redwoods of California, and the rocky beaches of the Aegean coast. We also included photos and videos we took on site visits to Birch Aquarium. For Chapter 1, we had developed a custom pipeline using just Python, Hugging Face libraries, and Touch Designer. For Chapter 2, we added the open source toolkit Comfy UI to design a custom generative AI workflow using a number of open source plugins. The full list can be seen at superradiance.net. Chapter 2 is over 7 minutes long, and we broke it down to around 60 shots. We created this custom workflow to process them individually. Here at the top is some general information about the current shot. Here, we load the video layers that we had created in Touch Designer. These will control various aspects of the final imagery, such as the composition, movement, localized textures, and materials. Here, we prepare masks for control nets and IP adapters. In Touch Designer, we'd colored each dancer's fluids red, green, and blue. Now, here in Comfy UI, we use these colors to isolate each dancer and the immediate environment in which they're entangled. And we can treat them individually with different IP adapters. These are images drawn from the photographs we'd taken and the research images from Scripps. And they influence the materials and textures of the generated imagery. Each shot has different requirements. So we created these modular processing blocks, which we can enable and disable depending on the requirement of each shot. Some shots use one IP adapter for the full frame. Some use one IP adapter for the background and another IP adapter shared by all the dancers. And others use a different IP adapter for each dancer. We also do IP adapter blending and parameter interpolation for smooth metamorphosis style transitions. We'll cover that shortly. Finally, we use outputs from Touch Designer to also control the composition and movement of the generated images, using a technique called control net. In fact, we use different control nets for the background and for the dancers, so we have more fine control over where and how movement occurs. Having created this workflow in Comfy UI, we don't manually edit the parameters and run it from this interface. Instead, we run it programmatically using a shot list spreadsheet. Each row in this table represents a shot where we specify the information and settings that define how we want the shot to be processed. This includes start and end time, the lines of the poem being spoken, an optional prompt to use, IP adapter configuration and file names, control net parameters, sampler settings, and more. Again, we use custom software which loads and runs our Comfy UI project for each shot, individually applying the settings from our spreadsheet. Each tab here at the bottom is a different run or attempt, and we did a lot of runs and tries. We noted down our feedback and thoughts here in the red text and reran new tests, fine-tuned the settings, the IP adapters, foreground and background control net weights and timings, guidance scales, sampler denoise, etc. In these runs, the settings remain fixed throughout the duration of each shot. Once we have a configuration that we like for a shot, we group them into chunks, and then we process the entire chunk, where all of the shot settings are interpolated, creating continuous, smoothly evolving sequences. Delving into the rich symbiotic processes of our living planet, we journey beneath the surface where life metabolizes rock into soil, into the dynamic exchange between land, water, and sky, the transformative dance between geological and biological forces, as life both emerges from and reshapes the planet. An ancient life continues to nourish the present, just as we will nourish the future.